Hey guys, welcome to The Strong Young Man. In 1957, Dr. Skinner, a famous American psychologist, conducted an experiment to test for behaviour of animals in response to reinforcement. He created a small box with a coloured disc in the wall which could be pecked by a pigeon. When pecked, a morsel of food would fall into the box as a reward. In the first set of experiments, he rewarded the pigeon every time they pecked. So basically, whenever the pigeon was hungry, it pecked the disc and would be regularly rewarded with a morsel of food. In the second part of the experiment, Skinner decided to change the schedule of reinforcement. This time he rewarded the pigeon randomly, both in the quantity of food rewarded and the frequency at which the pigeon was rewarded. So instead of the regular peck and immediate food, he made it variable, say 2 pecks for 5 morsels, then 5 pecks for 3 morsels, and so on, in a random pattern. To his surprise, he noticed something unbelievable. Unlike the pigeons that received the same food at regular intervals, the pigeons that received the rewards intermittently lost their shit. They started to continuously peck the disc compulsively. In fact, one pigeon hit the disc 2.5 times per second for 16 hours. Another tapped the disc a whopping 87,000 times over the course of 14 hours, while it got the reward only less than 1% of the time. Animals can be persuaded to perform an activity more often, simply by giving a variable reward, as opposed to promising a fixed reward all the time. This psychology works the same with humans. It taps into the reward centre of our brain. The activity in the reward centre of the brain actually becomes most active in anticipation or craving of the reward, and not when the actual reward itself is received. Rewards delivered unpredictably elicit a stronger psychological response than those delivered with a known pattern. This is because the variability of the reward, coupled with the uncertainty around when the reward will be delivered, makes it impossible to predict. We could be moments away from a jackpot, and our dopamine levels soar in anticipation of a big payout. The entire gambling industry is built on this concept. Gamblers on the slot machines have no way of knowing how many times they have to play before they win. There is always the possibility that the next coin they put in will be the winning one. The gamblers, just like Skinner's pigeons, become addicted to the variable rewards and continue to obsessively play the slot machines. Skinner called this intermittent variable rewards. Understanding this part of human psychology can be helpful to avoid the negative behaviours driven by this programming. You can also leverage this concept to your advantage. Here are some real-world examples of its practical uses. Example number 1. Reinforcing people on their good work intermittently will yield a higher rate of obedience and a stronger desire to perform better. Always reinforcing the desired behaviour is basically bribery. If you do X, then you get Y. No one likes to feel bribed. It's transactional, and it feels unsatisfying. It also requires more effort for you to consistently maintain positive reinforcement. Your positive reinforcement should be delivered intermittently such that it keeps the target maximally engaged. If you are in a position of authority, are well respected, or have high social status, then this will work twice as well. Example number 2. Use this knowledge to increase your own desirability within your relationships. Use intermittent positive reinforcement as a method for encouraging people to qualify for your attention. Rewarding women intermittently for their compliance will yield a greater seductive effect compared to predictable positive reinforcement. The intermittent reward could be anything from a compliment to words of encouragement or even a reassuring touch. The most concentrated application of intermittent positive reinforcement is to intermittently reward a woman with your attention. If you have aroused sufficient desire, then your presence and attention can be a reward within itself. Providing her with your attention in an intermittent fashion by creating an unpredictable pattern of attention and withdrawal will inflame arousal. By setting up conflicting signals such as desire and indifference, you inflame a woman's desire to possess you. They will hang off you until they receive that elusive attention of yours that has become so uncertain and harder to retain. Example number 3. Use this knowledge to your advantage when attempting to beat certain addictions. If you're addicted to a behaviour because of its intermittent positive reinforcement, understanding the psychology behind what's going on can help you to counter your desire to partake in that addiction. For example, the social science behind gambling is to pay the gambler the minimum amount they can, which ensures the gambler remains addicted. Social media addiction is another example of an addiction born from intermittent positive reinforcement. The unpredictability of likes, tags, and interesting posts to read feeds into this programming. Social engineers recognise this and manipulate what and how often something is displayed to ensure the user spends maximal time on the application. These are just a few of the more common examples of intermittent positive reinforcement. You will come across other circumstances with the potential to apply this concept and leverage it to your advantage. Just remember that in the beginning of Dr. Skinner's experiment, he had to condition the pigeon to be aware that pecking the disc was going to yield a reward. Similarly, you must condition the recipient of your intermittent positive reinforcement to understand what it is that you want them to do. For example, in the beginning of a child's life, you need to give your intermittent positive reinforcement more frequently until the child is clear on the expected behaviour. Once the child understands what's expected of them, employing the use of intermittent positive reinforcement will yield you a more obedient child, a more respectful child, a faster development, and hence a more fulfilling relationship compared to deploying consistent positive reinforcement. This is the same for a new intimate relationship. In the early stages, you cannot employ intermittent positive reinforcement too infrequently. Rather, you need to heighten your presence in the eyes of the other. If you withhold your positive reinforcement or deploy intermittent positive reinforcement too early, you may be forgotten. Once your woman's feelings are engaged and crystallised, you will inflame the sensation by creating a love lottery through intermittent positive reinforcement. Thanks for watching today's episode. In episode 84, I'll go through how to deal with rejection. Subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when it drops. Catch you then.